What's up, guys? Welcome back to another video. We're finally making splits. Our bees are on the ground. We got the crew behind me. It's a chilly morning. The bees are real cuddly, but we're going to show you guys how we're making up our splits this year. Dive into the logistics, whether you have bees or whether you're just interested in seeing how a commercial beekeeping operation works. Hopefully all this makes sense to you, and hope you enjoy the video. So step one is get the bees on the ground. So the bees are on the ground. We got them moved out to the yards. You guys saw that in previous videos. Step two is make sure we have all of our resources ready to make splits. You've seen that as well. We had a ton of time into making sure that our comb, our foundation, our boxes are ready to make splits. Step three, line up queens. There are a couple of different people that we're getting queens from this year. Very reputable queen cell producers. We don't do it ourselves because we don't have the time and it's just easier for us to buy them. And then final step is to start making splits. So we're gonna dive into how we're doing that behind me. We're making splits above excluders this year. We're doing that so that we can maximize our honey production. So we're going to keep parent doubles to run on honey production, and we're going to run singles for honey production as well. So all of our splits will be run as singles with an excluder, and then immediately a honey super. All of our doubles will be run as full strength parent doubles to make hopefully a larger honey crop than we have in previous years. So what we're doing is identifying the resources in the hive, and we're taking that, opening up that top box, seeing how much brood's in that top box, cracking the two deeps open, checking in the middle. We're just visually checking for brood in the bottom box. And if there's brood in the bottom box, what we're doing, we want to leave those parents as strong as we can while minimizing swarm risk. So the risk of them basically becoming too full and the queen wanting to leave and the hive basically naturally splitting itself. We want to prevent that because we can't control where those bees go. We identify that there's brood in the bottom box. If so, we come up to the top box and we take everything out except for 2 frames of brood. And we're making our splits up either 2 frames of full brood or 3 partial frames of brood. So the ratio of brood to amount of bees that's going to hatch out is 1 full frame of brood. It's a 3-to-1 ratio. So 1 full frame of brood is going to equal 3 frames of bees. So if we have 2 full frames of brood, in theory we're going to have 6 frames of bees in that split. So once we've made that up, we're making that up with 2 or 3 frames of brood and a frame of honey, and then we're dropping in brood comb and blonde comb in those as well. And then we're dropping 2 frames of wax foundation into the parent colony, which we've actually been doing for a couple days now, and we've seen them start to draw them out within a day, which is crazy. Again, that's the premier foundation. And then dropping in 2 frames of blonde comb. So if you pull 4 frames out of a parent, we're dropping in 2 frames of foundation, 2 frames of blonde comb, and then the rest is just brood comb that we have cycled. So from there, once it's made up, we're putting a new feeder in it, putting it on top of an excluder so that the nurse bees in that parent colony can work their way up and start to nurse that brood in that split. And then whenever we have cells, we'll pull those splits off, put them on a new pallet, and drop a cell in them. That'll be the next video. I've already started shooting that because we're cycling through splitting, putting cells in, splitting, putting cells in. And so this is a much slower splitting method. You saw last year we were making about 800 in a day, dropping 800 cells in a day. This year we're under 200 a day, and then we're doing 200 cells every other day. So much slower pace. However, I think much better for our bees, much better for our honey crop. So different approach this year. I also have about half the crew that I did last year because I wanted to focus on quality this year and take our time and just focus on honey crop rather than numbers. Numbers are important, but when we're trying to make Texas honey, we need to focus on having our bees as strong as possible. So that's the MO this year. That's what we're doing. Let me take you guys over to what the crew's doing and show you the process. I've also been doing a bunch of mite washes in the process, and we've had a bunch of 0s and 1s, so super happy. This is a view of some splits made up. This is how they're making them up. So in this one we have 3 frames of partial brood and a frame of honey. And then this is an extra brood comb that we've gone through. And then this is one that's made up. So we have our 4 frames here. So you've got a frame of honey to add to the split. So dig through, check the brood. Beautiful brood. Add a frame of brood. And he's shaking the bees off in the process. So if there's the queen's on the frame, he's going to shake her down into that bottom box. This is a quick way to not have to hunt for queens when you're making splits. And all those nurse bees will work their way up through the excluder. He's just seeing what he has brood-wise to decide which one he wants to add to the split. Falta huevito. So that one just recently went queenless, looks like. So we'll add some eggs to that, so hopefully they can raise their own queen. Juan, tú tienes huevito, Iván, necesito huevito. So by adding a frame of eggs to that, this strong colony can take those eggs, turn them into a queen cell, and raise their own queen, and hopefully rebound from going queenless. But we're still going to make up a split out of that because they have a lot of capped brood. So the workflow has been, we've got 2 guys busting, making splits. My dad over there, he's finishing the splits up. And then we have Blake basically on support. So all the resources that we need, empty shells, blonde comb, brood comb, foundation, he's making sure all that is available. So that's that. You can see we don't get a split out of everything. We have a full pallet, 75% here, 75% here, 50% here. So we don't get a split 1-to-1 on everything, but it's still a pretty good ratio of parents to splits. And now if the parents are smaller and they're bouncing back, we'll leave them. We don't want to pull any resources out of them. If they're queenless, like the one you just saw, we'll put some eggs in and remake it, and hopefully they will bounce back from that. We're just focusing on good honey production colonies while taking advantage of the spring season to make up new splits. All wrapped up now, all loaded up. There's 128 in this yard, which is a full one of our trucks, and we had, I think, somewhere around 16 dead outs. There's quite a bit of dead outs in this yard. And we came out with 105 splits. So you see some of them we got 2 splits out of. They were busting. Then we've got some holes from picked up dead outs. The interesting thing is a lot of the dead outs were actually 2 years old. They were parent colonies from last year. And they did make grade to California, so it's good to know a 2-year-old queen can make grade for California. On to the next one. So like I said, the workflow has been split for a couple days, drop cells in one day, split for a couple days, drop cells in. I will make a pretty extensive video on how we're dropping the cells in, because we're doing several different things to make sure that we're setting up our colonies for success this year. But the split process is pretty easy. It's just a little time consuming. Again, bee work, commercial bee work is mostly easy. It's the thinking and the decisions and the strategy that's the hard part for me personally. It's making those decisions, because what we do now sets us up for the remainder of the year. So every little decision that my dad and I are making right now changes the year. And what we decide to do with our bees, it's important that we set them up the correct way to do that, whether we're going to take them to melons, or whether we're going to take them to North Dakota, or if they're going to go to California. So this is a very important time in beekeeping. If you have bees or you want to get bees, this is a extremely important time for you to be setting yourself up right. This is what it takes to run a commercial beekeeping operation, and this is, at the end of the day, how a lot of our food gets on the table, is by beekeepers putting a ton of work in the springtime to set their bees up for the rest of the year to pollinate a bunch of crops. There's so many crops that depend on our bees and depend on beekeepers like myself and my friends to run successful beekeeping operations, so that we can put food on the table, not for just our families, but for a lot of other families in the country. And so this is how we're doing our splits this year. A little bit different pace than last year, like I said. Hopefully it'll work out for us in the long run. I think it will. Got a lot of good feedback. I've consulted with a lot of people on what we're doing. So I hope you enjoyed this one. Got a good video coming pretty soon on dropping queen cells and what we're doing to set the colonies up for honey production. So we'll see you in the next one.